Welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of The State of Things, right here in the Digital Media Suite of the Student Innovation Center. Jacob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jaden. I have spent the better part of this week recouping from our trip to DC last week.
Yes.
I put a lot of things off, a lot of schoolwork, a lot of different projects, and so I've spent this week really catching up, and I'm finally at a point where everything that was supposed to be done last week and everything that needed to be done this week is done. So I'm feeling a lot of pressure off my shoulders. How are you doing, Jaden?
You know, I am right there with you. Sometimes being a student first isn't my first go-to. Being in student government takes a lot of time, and so sometimes I actually have to be a student. But with spring break coming up next week, I am very excited to just have a grind week and try to get as much done as I can during that week, so then I'm not as stressed later down the road. But Jacob, what has student government been up to lately?
You know, student government's been up to some big things. We just this week introduced an amendment to the daily contract. So for our listeners out there, the Iowa State Daily is partially funded by student government. So currently we give them about $340,000 a year. And so over the last about 3 or 4 months, we've been having some conversations with leadership over at the Daily about their needs, going into the future, what student reporters need in terms of support, and the different challenges that the Daily has faced over the last decade or so. And so, we've kind of arrived at this new amendment to the contract, which will give them about, $200,000 additional dollars if approved. A lot of that's for, student reporters, for, additional technology resources, reinvestments in the Daily as an institution, and the people who work there, so that it can continue to be a great service on campus. So that has just been introduced in the Senate, and so we'll see, where it goes from there. The Senate has to vote to approve the contract. So when we get back from break, we will have a debate that first week, the first Senate meeting.
And I think a big thing that went through Senate last week that I was personally very excited about was our Sustainability Committee just pushed through a bill and got it passed to fund an additional 10 solar trash compactors to be dispersed around campus. And so those are kind of a key sake thing for the Iowa State campus with sustainability and really taking a load off of our service workers that, make this campus looking beautiful. It helps them out. And so I'm very excited to see those integrated into the campus later down the road.
Yeah, it's a busy time here in student government, and that's because most years we get most of our work done in the spring semester. Students, as we might suspect, procrastinate a little bit, but it's also election season here in student government, so we've got a lot of senators running for re-election, and we had a couple different executive campaigns, and so this week we actually wrapped up the 5-week campaign season. Elections were Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. And so at the time of recording, we don't know who has won the various elections. We do know that there were 2 officially slated executive campaigns, Kit Claiborne and Ella Slade running together, and then Emily Roberts and Jennifer Holliday running as well. And so we don't know who's won yet. We will know by the time of the next recording. But we'll also, our production team here will link in the description on Spotify some information on how to get the election results, and on YouTube we will comment links to the election results as well.
And I think one big thing I want to comment on before we wrap up the introduction is at the time of the recording, yesterday was International Women's Day. And at Student Government, we really wanted to celebrate women across the campus. And so we were handing out hot chocolate and donuts for a good portion of the day right here in the Student Innovation Center, celebrating women across campus and all the work that they've done to make Iowa State the wonderful campus it really is today.
Yeah, it was a great day on campus, a great day to celebrate women, and I think we had a lot of great student turnout for the event. But today, we're having a conversation with John Lawrence, who's the current Vice President for Extension and Outreach. A lot of students who come to Iowa State might not actually engage with the Extension and Outreach program or be aware that it exists at all, and kind of the integral role it plays in fulfilling our mission, or our land grant mission, here at Iowa State. Jane, could you talk a little bit about the history of Iowa State and our land grant mission?
Yeah, so I'm actually really passionate about kind of how Iowa State Agriculture College was founded, and so did some research right before this episode. So picture it: it's March 22nd, 1858, and the Iowa governor at the time, Ralph Lowe, signs the bill to officially create the Iowa State Agricultural College and Model Farm. 4 years later, on July 2nd, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signs the Morrill Act of 1862 that was spearheaded by Senator Justin Morrill of Vermont. And directly from the bill itself, it reads, to teach student branches of learning as are related to agriculture and the mechanic arts in such a manner as the legislatures of the states may respectively prescribe in order to promote the liberal and practical education of the industrial classes in the several pursuits and professions in life. And so that was kind of, we have the Morrill Hall here on campus. In respects to Justin Morrill. And so 2 months later, or a few months later, on September 11th, 1862, the Iowa governor at the time, Samuel Kirkwood, accepts the provisions of the Morrill Act during a special session and actually makes Iowa the first state in the nation to do so, accepting funds to collect this land from the federal government to be a part of the Iowa State Agriculture College. And so, contrary to popular belief, the Iowa State campus and really all the Iowa State land in Story County was not gifted from the federal government in 1862. The college received about 200,000 acres from the federal government, but it's all situated across 27 counties in northwest Iowa. And so that 200,000 acres was sold and rented to different private entities to raise funds to create and build buildings right here in Ames. And so that's kind of how the land-grant university system really came to be and built up the Ames campus. So then on March 17th, 1869, the first president of the Board of Trustees for the Iowa State Agricultural College, Benjamin Gue, said this quote during the dedication of the official college. It is one of the chief aims of this college to break down the barriers which belong to the darker ages of the past and open these doors to any of God's people, whether high or low in social circles, rich or poor, black or white, man or woman, end quote. And I think that's a very good quote to have the dedication of this university all the way back in 1869 be founded on. It really shows it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. Iowa State is a place that is going to accept everyone, and you can get a quality education from here. I think that's an amazing quote to have this university founded on. So then, in particular to Extension and Outreach with today's special guest, all the way back in 1887, a gentleman named Seaman Knapp enters the Iowa State realm of things and becomes an agricultural professor and the first chair of agriculture here at the Iowa State College, and is now nationally known as the father of extension. It was his work in 1887 when he helped draft the Hatch Act of 1887 that established the agriculture experiment stations in agricultural schools across the nation, which Iowa State has quite a few of across the state of Iowa. And then his work in 1906 when he initiated the county agent plan and then created the Boys Cotton and Corn Club, and then 4 years later in 1910 created the Girls Corn and Poultry Club. Those clubs eventually became known as the first 4-H clubs here in the state of Iowa. And then in 1914, he passed away a few years before this, but all of his work really led up to the Smith-Lever Act, which established a national cooperative extension service that extended outreach programs throughout land-grant universities to educate rural Americans about advances in agricultural practices and technology. And so now, here we are, 109 years later after the passing of this act, and Iowa State University is still providing extension and outreach to all Iowans under the leadership of today's very special guest. And so catch this conversation with Dr. Lawrence right after this producer bit.
Welcome back, everybody, to another producer bit here on The State of Things. As always, you are joined by your fabulous producers, Ethan, Maddie, and myself. Guys, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. Third winter's here, in full action. It snowed today, but it's okay. I needed a snow day, so that was really beneficial to me, going into my spring break. So yeah, I'm super excited. This semester's going by really quick. It's crazy. This was going to be released during spring break, I think. So that's like we're almost done with this semester. So
yeah, we're in the home stretch right now.
That's absolutely crazy. But what about you?
I'm doing all right. Got done with the last of my midterms today, so kind of just riding the breeze out till spring break, and then start school back up again last semester. So only about a month left. So yeah, I'm feeling all right. I think midterms went well, and just cruising on till school ends, and hopefully I graduate, get handed a diploma.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But Maddie, what about you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been kind of total madness trying to get towards spring break. I don't know about you guys, the lack of motivation has just been crazy. But we're almost there, and then it'll only be a couple months after. So I'm
That's
holding
fair.
out for there. Yeah.
That is fair. But speaking of madness, March Madness is coming up for college basketball.
That's
One of my
right.
favorite
That's
times of
right.
the year.
Uh-huh.
Probably my favorite sporting event, to be honest with you.
Fair.
There's nothing like college basketball, in my opinion. And so I kind of want to talk about that for a little bit. I mean, besides Iowa State, first off, congrats winning Baylor. Hopefully we win. At the time, we just beat Baylor today. Hopefully that continues on into the Big 12 tournament. Hopefully we get a good seed.
Yeah.
All of that information you will know that by the time this is released. But if you guys didn't have Iowa State in the March Madness bracket going all the way, which I hope you guys do because they're winning it this year.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Of course.
Take my word, they're winning it this year.
Loyal Sons forever true.
Exactly. Who is your team? Who's your underdog, or who is your backup team?
Backup team. Well, I will say this. I grew up in Illinois, so a lot of the schools and colleges that I grew up with, that I was accustomed to, were all kind of from the Illinois area. So I would have to say the University of Illinois.
Go Big Orange.
Yeah. I have basically been around them my entire life. Went to their school for a lot of different activities like robotics tournaments and for speech tournaments and other things. So was just surrounded by University of Illinois quite a lot. So I'd say they're my backup team. But of course, Iowa State, loyal Sons forever true.
Yeah,
but
100%.
But when I go back home, a lot of people around me are all University of Illinois students. So just to show my support, I cheer for University of Illinois.
Yeah. All right, cool.
That's fair.
What about you, Maddie?
I'm going to be pretty controversial. I was raised a Hawkeye fan, so I would have to say my backup team, though it pains and disgusts me to say it, would be Iowa, just honestly based on proximity over anything else. But because I don't know, I don't always pay attention to the other states when it comes to basketball. But
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
How about you?
I'm gonna have to agree with you actually on the Iowa
yeah,
thing. Also grew up a Hawkeye fan, so as much as
understand?
if they play in Iowa State all the way.
Oh,
But
yeah,
like,
no.
I'm still
Loyal
a
Sons
Hawkeye.
forever true.
I
Always.
will always be a Hawkeye in my heart. That's not when they play Iowa State, and so
Okay, well, I would never say that. I wouldn't go that far, but
it's hard. I was a diehard Hawkeye fan at one point. Anyway,
Ethan
would
is
say-
not a loyal son forever true.
I am.
He's just
I
there.
am now. Actually, thank you very much. I'm here at
Okay.
Iowa State University.
so true.
corrected.
The
I'm a
red, it's a
student
red
here.
backdrop. It's not gold.
Yeah,
like we're good.
exactly. Anyway,
Okay, oh, yeah.
I mean, even
You,
alright, alright.
man.
Anyway.
You.
But Iowa, I love Iowa basketball. Because I grew up watching them, and also Keegan and Chris Murray, I went to high school with, and little known, I was in their pre-calc class. I think it was their senior year, my sophomore year. I never said a word to them, but they were in my math class.
Wow.
I have that.
Flex.
And my friend played basketball with him a couple of times, I think. So
Stunning.
they're really great. I mean, Keegan's in the NBA now for the Kings. He's doing amazing, and
Fair
Chris
enough.
is now he's doing well for Iowa. But yeah, I'd say Iowa, and if not Iowa, I know they won't make the tournament this year, but Syracuse. My dad grew up in Syracuse. Jim Boeheim actually just retired, which is really, really sad. He was there for like 43 years. So I'm a little sad about that, but it's okay. No, if all else fails, underdog. You always root for the underdog in March
That's so
Madness
true.
because half the time they'll win. So
Yeah.
There you
Well, if you're on campus over the next few weeks and want to be watching the games, I believe Sictor has been showing them, Student Innovation Center, my apologies, has been showing them on the big screen in front of the giant staircase. So
Yeah, so Sictor is going to be showing the whole Big 12 tournament as far as I know. So if you are around in the spaces and want to watch any of those games, and also leading into March Madness, hopefully Iowa State gets in. I don't see why they wouldn't, because they're going all the way, baby. But Sictor is going to be streaming all of those games. So if you're around and in the area and kind of want to come and watch those games, come on down. It's going to be a vibe.
sure enough. And as you guys know, March Madness means it's springtime, which means it's almost summertime, which leads me into my song of the week, which happens to be a great summer jam. And that would be If Only for Tonight by Vacation Manor.
that's a
Great song,
yeah.
solid bop. Vacation Manor does some great music, so I would highly recommend you add that to your playlist right now, and you will not regret it. You guys have any songs that you were loving this week?
Yeah, so mine's going to be a little bit different from what I normally go with. I've been doing the country, alt rock,
Sure.
pop kind of thing,
Yeah, I get
but
you.
we're going to get into the rap section. So, little known fact, my favorite rapper is NF, and those of you that don't know, he's releasing a new album coming like April called Hope. And the lead single off of that album is just fantastic. I know that a lot of people like have mixed feelings about NF, but if you have listened to NF before and are like, I don't really like him anymore, or you've never heard him at all, start out with Hope. It's a great vibe. It's a new style to what he's done before, so I'm super excited for it. What about you, Ethan?
I'm gonna go a little sad today. I
Bummer.
know. I'm a little. It's no Christmas songs because Christmas is past, even though it's winter today. Sorry, I just want to keep
Never
bringing
heard
up
of
the fact
Christmas
that
in
it
July?
snowed today. Christmas in Phineas in Ashland.
Oh.
It's Ashley. I think it's Ashland. It's her song with Phineas feature "Till Forever Falls Apart."
So good.
So good. Also, just Phineas in general, so good. Top tier artist in my opinion, and he's still pretty young.
Yeah.
I mean, because he produces music. Billie Eilish is his sister, right?
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
he helps produce Billy's
Well,
music
and
as
she's
well.
like one of
and
the top artists in the, whatever. Like, that's talent,
he's musically so great, so fantastic.
Yes.
He's crazy.
Well, speaking of getting into our fields and also production,
Oh my gosh.
I have a question to pose to you all. We're kind of winding down to a close here for season 1 of The State of Things. Something that's a bittersweet truth that we're going to have to accept at some point. Couple more episodes to film, and then
You and I are graduating.
You guys are
we're
outta here.
graduating. We're letting go of the reins, and
It's gonna be my
no.
show. I'm so
I
excited.
wouldn't go that far. But
Terrifying,
anyway,
frankly.
question that I wanted to pose is I wanted to just spend some time just looking back on like where State of Things started, like kind of go through its origin story a little bit, but then spend some time talking about like how we've grown and progressed. Like what has been your favorite thing about State of Things, and then where do you want to see it go, like into the future? Like what are your hopes for it going into season 2?
Sure. I'll start off because I think I've got the earliest anecdote here of the State of Things, and it's when Jacob pitched the idea. So at the time, I was director of marketing, Ethan's current position, and Christian Grensteiner was our senior director of communications. So Jacob came to him and I first for it, and I was a budding StuGov member. I wasn't really like hip with the jive or whatever you want to call it. But I remember I was like hunched over my computer working on something for marketing, and he comes up. He's like, Maddie. He leans against the wall. He's like, I've got an idea, and I just went, oh no, right? I was like, what?
We've
could
all
this
been
kid
there. We've all been
possibly
there.
have up
Been
his
there,
sleeve?
done that.
I've got an idea. Jacob, no.
No, he
Yep.
literally,
No.
and he just goes, podcast. And I sat there and I was like, you know what? I know how to edit. Bet, like, let's do it. It's a new idea. We had been trying to brainstorm new ways to reach students and get more information out there. And frankly, I was at a loss because I was like, I don't know. So we said that, and because him and Jaden had just looked at the podcasting suite down here and got really inspired by it. So me, Jacob, Christian, and Jaden all kind of got started with the creativity. Sundar joined almost immediately after he heard about it, because you had experience podcasting, which
Yeah.
thank goodness, because I didn't know what I was doing. So Sundar's been like total great help throughout this, and then we brought Ethan on the team very shortly after episode 2, I believe. And clearly you have made this production something way beyond what any of us thought it was going to be.
Oh,
But yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
100%. I was gonna say I didn't start on first couple episodes, and then I'm happy because this has been a really good boundary to be able to push. I think that it's creative. This has been it's been nice to kind of express myself creatively. Yes, thank you for that because I can't speak.
There we go. There we go.
And so it's been really nice. Obviously, I'm still like every episode I'm trying to learn more. Like I don't think I've had the same episode for the lighting things. It's all been different. It might look the same on camera, but it's different. We get new gear, we get new stuff. I'm constantly like changing how they sound, learning how they sound, and kind of mastering how they sound. So yeah, but I've had fun. I've had so much fun. I'm excited to go into next year. I'm excited to see who my team is, work with whoever wins the election, who you guys will know by now, but comes out tomorrow. So I'm excited to continue the legacy on in your guys' name.
Oh, so kind. How about you? What's your experience been like?
My experience has been one of a lot of ups and downs. So, for those of you that don't know, my role here on the podcast is mostly content creation. So I work a lot with Jacob and Jaden on getting guests on, formulating questions, kind of going through all the different segments, ensuring that all of it is getting recorded the right way and in the right fashion. And then so working with Ethan on the recording process, setting up lights and doing that stuff and making sure all of our segments are good, and then working with Maddie on kind of editing all that stuff together. So I have a lot of good times here. So I think the thing that I have been most thankful for, the thing that I have been most proud of, is to know you guys and to know Jacob and Jaden, because like
So sweet.
I might get teary-eyed talking about this, but like you guys have been like the closest people I've had in my life this entire year, and just the fact that I get to spend like most of my days like with you guys, and like you guys have gone above and beyond what has been expected of you, and have like taken on this podcast. Even when you stepped down from director of marketing, you were like, I still want the podcast. Like when I was talking with you about it, I have really taken on this idea of like, this is my child. Like this is something that like we all birthed into existence.
Yeah.
And I was pretty much just saying like I am not leaving it on the wayside. I'm not just gonna like let go of the reins and just let somebody just like willy nilly just try to pick it up. Like I want to train somebody into the next thing because I want to see this succeed.
Yeah.
And so with that mindset, having you guys like support me and like us working together as the team that we are, putting up with Jacob and Jaden's antics and whatnot, whatever they do, like, but just the fact that like we three got together and we have been just like this really roundhouse team on getting all of this stuff done, but honestly, just the best of friends. I mean, like we spend so much time even just outside of the studio that it's like you guys are just my best friends.
Lots of
and
friends.
it's yeah. I mean, I remember when we were on the grassroots team together for Jacob and
Jaden's
Jaden,
campaign.
and like I remember seeing you and being like, she seems like a cool person. I want to hang out with her.
So
but
true.
then I was like, you know what? I'm not cool enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. So I was like, you know what? I'm a senator and she's the director of marketing. I'm gonna like separate myself. But then the podcasting thing came about, and I was like, oh my goodness, I want to jump in. And I got to work with you, and then we added Ethan on, and Ethan is just super learned when it comes to like anything technology. I mean, he and I swap stories about, I work in the Student Innovation Center, he works in the Memorial Union, so we swap stories about audio and video tech all the time, but he is much more learned in anything in that field, much more than I will ever be. So he's been a great friend of mine, somebody who I have definitely looked up to when it comes to technology, but somebody who I have come to just enjoy spending time with, and somebody who I feel very comfortable handing over in terms of leadership for the production team for State of Things.
All jokes aside, yes.
Yes.
Like very comfortable.
As much as we bash on Ethan for being the youngest, for being who he is, being the youngest of the group and stuff, I just have come to love and adore you guys as a production team, and I just want to thank you guys for just putting up with me and all of my antics, all the things that I've done here that I'm not too proud of, but you guys have helped
You're
to
too sweet.
Very sweet.
I'm about to start crying over here. So thank you for that. Also, quick plug: I was MU Student Employee of the Month last month.
I saw that on the TV.
I think I'm still up on the TVs, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You are.
I don't think I've seen you as the Student Innovation Center.
Well, I'll tell you what. If we want
Whoa.
to spend some time flexing a little bit, I'm on the jumbotron and I'm on all the TVs in
Okay,
terms of all of our.
No, but wait, did
Production
either
material.
of you get nominated for Student Employee of the Year? Because
Ooh.
That's
okay.
fair.
my name's
Okay.
first on the list.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say.
So as you can
she
see,
has this beat.
we are great friends, but we like to have a little competition every now and again.
Oh yeah, it
Every
keeps
now and
it exciting. Creatives have to be in a space where
You have
we
to
can
challenge.
crush on each
You have
other.
to, and you have to challenge each other. That's how.
It
That's
can't
how
move
this
forward without
happens.
it,
That's
yeah.
how.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I would say that's probably what I'm so in love with about this podcast and why I wanted to stay on, because yeah, it's a lot of extra work, but even just the way people get so interested when you say, yeah, I work with a podcast, they're like, oh, like really? Because it's kind of it's an up and coming platform, but it's still fairly rare for people to say like, yes, like we spearhead a creative project like this.
Yeah.
And being able to say, we as students who frankly, like, we're not like high up in the student realm world, we get to meet all these super cool faculty. Like, I get to say, I sat in a room with Wendy Winterstein while she had and it's really cool to be able to get all these opportunities to meet people that we would not have gotten to meet otherwise, frankly. And to learn about all of the things that Iowa State is doing for its students that aren't necessarily at the forefront of every conversation. Like, I think that's something that's so important about this podcast. And like, it's a cool and unique way to get faculty involved with students to spread this information that isn't being spread the way that it could be.
I mean, the whole purpose of the podcast was to get faculty, to get other people around in the city of Ames and here at the university into the studio to talk with our president, vice president about things happening on campus. Like, the whole purpose of this was to get the information into students' hands in a more like accessible way. And just the fact that we've been able to kind of push the boundaries of that, of just like simple podcasting to even get it to the state that we're in right now, the state of things.
Wow.
Wow.
What a wraparound. That's
I know.
crazy.
I know.
What a
That's good.
wraparound.
But that was the purpose. That was the goal. And I think that we've done the best job that we can this season. And I think going into next season, the thing I'm super excited for is, one, the team that we're going to get to work with, but two, knowing who the presidential elects and VP elects are. I'm kind of excited because both sides have expressed interest in being hosts of the state of things. And of course, I have my biased favorites in terms of voting, but I think both teams would do a fantastic job
I
when it
totally
comes
agree.
to hosting the podcast. And I think that with Ethan at the helm, kind of running the production side and kind of leading people forward, I think that it's going to be a good step forward into season 2. So
I agree.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. But yeah, with that, we're gonna send it back over to Jacob and Jaden to talk with our guest. I'm gonna butcher his name.
John Lawrence.
so it's Dr. John Lawrence,
Thank
who is
you,
the
thank you, I
Vice
appreciate
President
it.
of Extension and Outreach here on campus. So with that, let's throw it back to Jacob and Jaden.
All right, and welcome back. Today, our special guest on the State of Things is the Vice President for Extension and Outreach, Dr. John Lawrence. Dr. Lawrence, how are you today?
I'm doing well, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you here. It's been kind of a snowy day and a little slick and slidey out there, but the sunshine has come from Kansas City today with our Cyclone victory.
That's right. Just beat Baylor today at the time of this recording, so we hope the momentum for our Iowa State men's basketball team can continue.
That's right.
God willing.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Lawrence, you are currently the Vice President for Extension and Outreach, and you've been at Iowa State since 1991. That's a really long career, at this university. I think you've done a lot of different things during that time, held a lot of different positions. I was looking at your CV earlier. It looked like you were acting director of a couple different programs at the same time during the 2010s. Can you talk a little bit about your journey here as a student and then kind of your professional experience?
Yeah, if you read my resume, it looks like I can't hold a job, right? Because there's been several things. But no, I took a little unconventional path, if you will. My wife and I came here as 24-year-old freshmen after having farmed for a while and a little bit of community college. And this is back in the early 80s during the farm crisis. We were maybe an early casualty of that, but it worked out well for us. We started here as 24-year-old freshman in 1982 and have been in college ever since. I got an undergrad degree in animal science and a master's in economics here at Iowa State, and went on to University of Missouri for a PhD. After a short stint on faculty at University of Minnesota, we came back to Iowa, back home, but also a place professionally, if you were going to work in agriculture and in the livestock sector, which is my area especially, Iowa was a place to be. That's where the work was important, and been on faculty and then, as you said, played different roles over the years.
And you've served as vice president since 2017 now, right?
Yeah, I had a year as an interim in that role. There's a vacancy, and I was asked to step into that, and then applied for the position permanently, and there was a national search, and I was selected. And for my 5-year term is coming to an end, and I had said I would serve in that role and sprint across the finish line, but it was time for someone else to take the reins.
Very nice. And so before we dig too much into the conversation, I really want to take us back a step and ask your explanation of what extension and outreach is and what it means in the practical everyday life of every Iowan.
Yeah, I'll go back and talk about the land-grant university. And Iowa State is land-grant university. In fact, Iowa was the first state in the nation to accept the terms of the Morrill Act. And its extension and outreach is one of the one leg of the three-legged stool, if you think about research and education and extension. And it is really extending the knowledge and the resources of Iowa State University beyond the campus. If you go back to history, but it helps put it in perspective a little bit. We were the first state really with the extension concept, and in 1903, farmers from Sioux County in northwest Iowa said, hey, we understand you're doing research. Will that research apply in northwest Iowa, and can you bring that knowledge to us? And so we put a professor, Perry Holden, on a train and sent him to northwest Iowa, up to Hull, to talk to farmers about the research he was doing on seed corn selection, because at that time farmers kept their own seed. And that was really the start of the extension idea. And by 1905, we put a train load of faculty together and sent them out to towns to talk about a week-long short course and around agriculture, around home economics, boys and girls club that later become 4-H, and community development. They'd leave Ames Monday morning and they'd get back Friday night. And by the time the U.S. passed the Smith-Lever Act in Congress in 1914, we'd done 170 or more of those week-long short courses. And during that time, we had counties starting to say, why is it always in Ames? Why can't I have somebody from Iowa State in my town, in my county? And so Clinton County was the first one in 1912 to establish a county, an Iowa State employee in the county. And by 1919, all 99, actually 100 county offices had been established. So we celebrated the centennial of all those counties just recently.
So I am curious, you mentioned that there's 99 counties, but 100 offices. Where is that extra floater at?
So Pottawatomie County, which is a large county, has 2 offices, an East Pottawatomie and a West Pottawatomie County, and it's established in Iowa code. It even names the townships of which one is in which. So yeah, it's been that way for a long time.
All right. I think it's very interesting that Extension started out as shipping out professors to everywhere, but now we have those 100 different offices spread out across the state to have those inbound faculty members right there at the heart of everything.
Yeah, so we have county staff. Actually, the other unique thing about Iowa is in 1955, we passed the Agricultural Extension Act, it was called, but it established taxing authority for the counties to raise property taxes to fund extension locally. Oh. Most other states, as my friend in Minnesota calls it, extension is an unfunded mandate. It says counties shall support extension, but you figure out how to do it. And so in those states, extension has to develop a proposal and a budget and go to the county supervisors and ask for funding for extension, along with other priorities the supervisors may have around bridges and gravel and security and with the sheriffs and stuff. Here we have dedicated resources in the form of property tax. And because of that, we have an elected council. So every district has a 9-person elected council that's responsible to watch over those tax dollars. And so there are partners. They have the local office. They employ the local staff. We as a university partner with them and bring the knowledge and the research-based information, the curriculum, the specialists to help deliver that programming.
I think that's very, very interesting. I think how different states are kind of managing this extension mission that was kind of outlaid. Now, you mentioned we've got 100 offices around the state. Obviously, you're kind of based out of here in Ames, Iowa. What does your day-to-day look like in terms of working with the various offices and managing this extension mission?
Yeah, so it's a big organization, and it's very dispersed. So the 100 offices, obviously, we have about 1,100 people between about here at this time of year, maybe about 950. But during the summer, we have a lot of summer interns, so we'll be up over 1,100 employees working on the extension mission. And no, I don't oversee every one of them, right? So we have 4 program areas, much like we started back with the trains, right? So agriculture and natural resources. We have the 4-H program, our human sciences, working with largely families in our communities. Each one of those have a program leader that report directly to me, and we meet weekly to talk about what's going on in their program areas that they oversee. They'll work with faculty here on campus, specialists across the state. And then we have a county services unit that oversees those 100 offices. And we have 28 regional directors that work from anywhere from one county, if it's a large county like Polk or Story, to maybe 4 or even 5 counties that are more rural. And so kind of a system, if you will, of an organizational chart. So what my day-to-day or maybe week-to-week looks like is we'll have weekly leadership team meetings. I stay plugged into what's going on nationally and maybe in other states and help communicate that locally. We'll work with, hear ideas coming up from the counties. These are questions that we hear, who's working on this, that sometimes they communicate directly with the programs. If this is an agricultural or an agronomy question, it may go directly into our agronomy faculty. In other cases, recently, like the state has had a big push on broadband, rural broadband. There's federal dollars available for broadband, but you have to apply for it. You get a request from the state saying, can Extension help us inform people that these funds are available, and how do they go about applying for them? And there we may partner with, maybe it's a council of government, maybe it's a city council, maybe it's a school district that wants to go after those federal funds. Mm-hmm. We might partner with them by helping them write the grant. Probably not in a lead position, but in a supporting role. So that's an example of the type of a thing that may come forward.
I think that's a very unique perspective to put on it, just because personally, I grew up in Pocahontas County. I did 4-H, and so those are the first things I think about was the county fair, the 4-H programs, and that's really where my knowledge and experience with Extension stops, is at those youth programs. And so knowing and understanding that Extension works so much farther beyond that, even with the broadband and helping these entities write grants is something that I personally didn't even know about. And so you also mentioned there's the 4 kind of big sectors of Extension that the Iowa model of Extension is. But I suppose, how do we compare among other models of Extension, or how are we better than other states in Extension comparatively?
Well, one big difference, I would say, is where we have invested or continued to protect resources over time. Because like I said, we started early in the 20th century, and that would be across all states, and it grew dramatically. There was great funding, but as we've seen a shift, even like public universities, the shift from public supporting a lot of that to tuition paying for a lot of it, we've seen federal and state dollars to Extension flatten out and actually decline over time. What we have chose to protect has been the specialist role. So whereas most states would have a county office and a county director and faculty on campus, At Iowa, we have a specialist throughout the state. As we saw, as farmers became more specialized, as the challenges families face become more specialized, instead of just having a generalist in the county that may help you with, correct nitrogen rates for your corn, to what's this bug on my tree, to, how do you save for retirement, trying to answer all of those questions, we've broken it up. And even, so we have agriculture and families and human sciences. Even within that, within human sciences, we have those working on health and well-being, so around nutrition or mental health. We have it around family finance, so saving for retirement, budgeting for, the home budget or for college. And within agriculture, we have agronomists, but we have ag engineers, we have beef specialists, and we have horticulture specialists. And so that's what sets us apart from other states, is we have, at the local level, maybe not county by county, but if you call your county office and have a beef question, you're going to have a beef specialist respond to that. Now, they may cover 12 counties, but they're very knowledgeable in that area.
I think that comes full circle for me. Being a horticulture student, some of my professors, they do teach a few of my classes, but their primary responsibility is being the fruit or vegetable
Correct.
extension specialist, and that's their primary duty, and they're always out, always referencing the great producers in the state of Iowa as a basis for their class. And so I think that really connects the dots for me in that specialist area.
Yeah, and that's a great example of how things have changed over the decades. I might have been one of the last people hired with a 100% extension appointment. We used to hire people that were 100% extension, and then you had people that were split between teaching and research. During my career, after 7 or 8 years, I actually started teaching a class and then was doing extension, and the very thing you talked about. And I won't brag on myself, I'll brag on my colleagues. Oftentimes our extension people are the best classroom teachers as well, particularly for those capstone senior level classes where you're getting closer and closer to the real world application, because they've just been wrestling with that issue with growers, and now it's in the classroom. The other thing I found is it made me a better extension educator, because I had to think about what's the learning objective I'm trying to achieve here, and what are some of those skills or things that I'm using in the classroom that helps me better explain something, write a better fact sheet, develop a better curriculum for the adults as well.
Yeah, I think you're talking about how I think a lot of extension, we view it as a, how do we support the state of Iowa and, the broader community, but there's that kind of back and forth, there's the things that actually come back to campus, that kind of science with practice, right? So like, how would you say that the extension and outreach program kind of affects students here on campus?
Yeah, and the example I talked about is some of our extension faculty are in the classroom, and even some of our teaching research faculty may draw in an extension specialist for a lecture or two around a particular topic, so you may have a guest lecturer. I think our 4-H, like you said, Jaden, that you were a 4-H'er, and now you're here on campus. There is a collegiate 4-H on campus that has members that were in 4-H, and they come here and they continue on in that. And so that's another place you may see some of it. There has been, and we're trying to, I won't say break down barriers as much as kind of work around them, but there's always kind of been this, we teach family finance. Well, we have, adults here, young adults that are going to go out in the world that need to know about saving and balancing checkbooks and budgeting for household and stuff. We teach that every day out in the state. Should we be also teaching those types of classes here, right? We teach nutrition, how to live within your budget, but also eat healthy. Live, eat healthy is one of our programs. Again, focus on families, but as young adults that are going out in their first job and maybe, trying to start a good lifestyle, those types of skills we could be teaching here as well. And so I think there's opportunities. On the community side, we see, people that are in community planning or maybe landscape architecture and such. We'll partner with the college that works with communities on developing projects for Main Street or maybe better signage or how to promote our community and such. And so the students from the classroom connected with a community that's maybe been through a leadership program and decided we need to do more to promote our community, and that's our priority. We're going to fund a research project for a student to help us, and that ties back into a student and perhaps their professor coaching them to help that community do those types of things.
I think that's a very unique experience of students being able to impact actual Iowa communities, because being at Iowa State, sometimes we get wrapped up in all of these theories and the kind of the academic bubble, but then when we actually get to apply what we've learned in the classroom to, actual people and communities in the state of Iowa, that, we could go drive an hour and see the work that's been done because of the research and work that students did here on campus. I do think that's a very unique approach to extension and partnering with the students here at Iowa State.
Yeah, one great example of that is our Rising Star interns. And so we have an internship program through the summer. We partner with the colleges. Colleges put up part of the money. The local county that wants to have those students help them put up part of the money. And it's a paid internship. And it's typically 3 students in a cohort, so you're not out there by yourself, right? That will go and work in a community, and they'll have a project. Now, oftentimes it's just a concept. We need help marketing our community, or we have a child care problem, not enough child care. We've had these Rising Stars interns work with the community to develop a business plan for child care in a community that the city leaders picked up and implemented. We've had them develop a farmer's market in a community that didn't have one before. They've worked with farmers markets to work with youth program about how youth make better choices. And then when they go to the farmer's market with their parents, they can talk about, oh yeah, that food is fun to eat. Let's buy some of that. And so but it gets those students, and the neat thing is when we have a cohort that'll have someone from the agricultural college, like maybe horticulture, from landscape architecture or design in the College of Design, and then maybe someone from human sciences around nutrition, and they work with the community about, all right, how do we improve healthy living in this community? And it may be walkable trails, it may be farmers markets, and it may be exercise classes, but it brings all those skills together in a problem solving type of deal, and it's the students that do it.
And I think a program that impacts a lot of students before they even get to Iowa State is 4-H. I know we've mentioned it a few times, and so I really want to think about that is how outreach and extension impacts youth. I mean, starting in 4th grade, myself, I joined because it was the thing to do. Everyone was in 4-H. But where do you think the state of Iowa and our youth would be if 4-H wasn't implemented throughout the state? What would be the impact if that wasn't a thing?
Well, and you'll get a lot of stories about that of people that can go, back to they started their career because they went to college because in 4-H their leader brought them to campus and it sparked some interest and excitement. They had a local scholarship for 4-Hers that allowed them to do these things. And you will see that going back, I introduce you some 90-year-olds. They have a great story of what it has done for them. And it continues today, but in different ways. You sound like you started in 4th grade and stuck it all the way through your senior year and had an impact, right? There's about 23 to 25,000 members like you across the state that are part of a club. They have an adult, volunteer leader they work with. They think about the county fair and their projects, and they set goals and they achieve goals and so on. It develops these leadership skills. It develops self-confidence. There's another 100,000 students beyond that we interact with in a variety of ways that's not club related. It may be a day camp around rocketry or archery, right? Something that gets them excited. It may be an after-school program where maybe the local school is hosting a kind of an after-school program, and 4-H is in there one day a week, and they're talking about healthy living one time, and they're talking about making crafts the next, and they're talking about livestock and where your food comes another time. So there's lots of different ways we interact with it. The ones where we have the greatest impact are folks like you, that it's a lifetime, you develop these skills and appreciation. But even these short interactions still can spark their interest and build their confidence around different things.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really coming out in this conversation is that there's so much happening in all the different outreach offices, so many different programs that affect Iowans and our communities in 100 different ways. What are maybe some like highlight programs for you, some ones that are near and dear to you that you've kind of interacted with over your years with Extension Outreach?
Yeah, how much time you got? So let me think about it from different perspectives. One that I think is really neat, and again, that's often lost, and it is that, and I've mentioned child care a couple of different times, but that is a major issue in the state of Iowa, and particularly quality child care. And so the state has regulations around what it takes to be a child care provider and so on, and you have to be certified to do these things. We provide the certification. So there's I think it's over 20,000 individual people a year that go through certification training to be child care providers. And again, that's Extension Outreach. It's based on the science of raising kids and how to work with them and so on. Food safety, every establishment selling food has to have a certified manager that's been through ServSafe. We don't certify them, but we provide the education for them to be certified, and the pass rate is like over 75% to go through our program pass on the first time, so around food safety. Some county ones, it's a small one, it's kind of a one-off, but I thought it was really cool. So Ringgold County, let's see, is it Ringgold? Yeah. During COVID, we had an initiative. We said, pick a topic that you think will help the state recover, and they picked economic development. And they worked with their local economic developer to update their business directory. The last one they had was still printed on paper, right? Still had landlines. Some companies didn't have websites. It was like 15 years old. And so they said, we're going to update that directory because, there's new businesses. There's some that's gone out, websites, cell phones, all this. And they literally went door to door to businesses, and then they would say, well, who else do you know that we should call? And go and put together this directory, of online digital directory of all of the small businesses in that county. And it started out with, hi, I'm from Iowa State Extension Outreach, and we're putting together this directory. And oh, by the way, do you know we have these other programs that might help you on writing a business plan or applying for a grant, or you need child care for your workers. Do you know about this program? And it was just a really neat way of kind of old school, get out face-to-face, shake hands, and say, hey, Iowa State is here to help you.
I think that's amazing right there. Just the fact of, I think the idea of how grassroots it is. Yes, you're in Beardshire here in Ames, but the grassroots efforts of Extension and Outreach, of actually outreaching, it's almost mind-blowing to me. And just how, the certifications, like you said, how that advances people's careers, and you are providing that for free to them. And so with these, a few of your favorite programs, where do you see the future of Extension and Outreach going?
Yeah, a great question. One, I think we're here for the long haul. Yes, there's been lots of changes, but again, we're still in every county. We're still tied to the university, and still are not only the boots on the ground, but I'd say the ears on the ground. What challenges are you hearing that the university can help with? And I think that will continue. I think one of the future is we'll see more virtual education. I mean, we've seen it here on campus, right? COVID kind of forced us to pivot to doing things more virtually. But about that same time, in 2021, we introduced a data tracking system, and so we can do a better job keeping track. And we had over 870,000 educational contacts in a 12-month period of time. 10% of our programs were virtual, 20% of our contacts were virtual. So if you think about that, 20% of the educational contacts were online. 3/4 of those were asynchronous.
Okay.
So some of them were, oh, I'm going to set up a Zoom meeting at this time and you be there, or I'll do a Zoom meeting with you one-on-one. But a lot of them, it was, as I told the staff this week, I said, here's an opportunity with this asynchronous, do it well and do it once and put it out so it's there when people want to have that information. And I think is a great opportunity. It's a crowded field, but I don't think it's fully saturated. I think our brand can still open a lot of doors and differentiate us from private sector or some YouTuber out there that is doing this. If it's important, we could, what's the research base behind it? What I think we need to do is learn how to do virtual delivery well, as opposed to I've stood in front of a classroom with my 55 PowerPoint slides, and this is what I'm going to lecture you on in a monotone voice forever and ever, to how do you engage people? What are those short clips, and how does it all fit together? And I think if we can learn to do that better, it's going to open even more doors for us, not just in Iowa, but broadly.
I think that's a really good aspect to think about because, like you said, extension is a lot of that boots on the ground work, but now you don't even have to have the boots on the ground once you perfect the virtual platform, which is really unique. I know, Jacob, if you wanted to touch on your final question.
Yeah, there's, since, you've been here since 1991, you've played, a key role in a lot of different positions, both here at the university and out with Extension and Outreach. And, you're retiring at the end of this semester with kind of all that behind you and kind of reflecting on that. What are maybe some final, words of wisdom that you could leave for the campus or parting thoughts?
Well, first off, this is a very special place. I care deeply about Iowa State University. I've had the honor and the privilege to be able to work here, and I take that very, very sincerely. It's a extension in particular, but I think academics in general, I think, are a calling. You have to want to do this sort of thing, and I think that for the university going forward, I think while we're sitting in the beautiful new building with all the shiny gadgets and stuff, it's still a people organization. The faculty are people, the students are people. And our education, our success depends on our people and those that care deeply about our mission. And so I think that just always kind of keep that in front and center. Yes, budgets are important. Yes, all the gadgetry and innovation is important. But remember, all that comes from the people.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Lawrence, thank you so much. I know Jacob and I want to thank you for being on the podcast, but I think I will speak for all Iowans when I say thank you for your leadership in disseminating information here from Ames, Iowa, to all 99 counties in the state of Iowa. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
That was a stellar conversation with Dr. John Lawrence, our Vice President for Extension and Outreach here at Iowa State University. Jaden, what are your big takeaways from our conversation today?
I think the biggest thing that I took hold of was right at the beginning of our conversation when he said Iowa State University sits on 3 pillars: extension, research, and education. And not many people realize, I did personally just because I grew up in Iowa, I did 4-H, I was in all the extension youth programs, but it's kind of the one that not many people think about at all times. And I know you can personally relate to that. Just not growing up like I did with those experiences, but, extension being one of those big 3 pillars of what Iowa State stands on was my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, and I think as someone who didn't interact with, some of the programs that were offered by the Extension and Outreach offices, in my county, I think it was really cool today to hear just about all the different ways that Iowa State reaches out and supports Iowans across the state. And how those different programs can play key roles, in business and farming decisions of families out there, and give them the tools they need to succeed. in whatever challenges they might be facing. Little things like, he was talking about how supporting cities and counties in their, applications for federal grants in the wake of, the COVID pandemic. Those are really important services to provide to these communities, and it gives them a leg up as they're making these crucial decisions. So yeah, I think this was an amazing conversation. I think we got to highlight a part of the university that doesn't get, I think, enough coverage here on campus. There's, the people who interact with Extension Outreach really interact with it and see those benefits. And so really excited to kind of share some of that with our listeners today. But with that, I just want to say thank you to our listeners, across all of our various platforms. But also just want to acknowledge again that this was the election week here on campus for student government. And so I want to say a quick thank you to the executive campaigns that ran this year, Kit Claiborne and Ella Slade, and Emily Roberts and Jennifer Holliday for running great campaigns. And I also want to thank all the people who ran for Senate. This is a really important part of what we do. Student government makes a lot of big decisions. We spend a lot of money. We spend your student dollars every year and are your voice to the campus administration. And so I want to thank everyone who ran and everyone who voted in elections this year. It's really important to engage with that process. And with that, thank you for listening. And this has been The State of Things.
Thank you for listening to another great episode of The State of Things, an ISU Student Government podcast original. This episode was hosted by Jacob Ludwig and Jaden Ahlrichs, produced by Madeline Willits, our executive producer, Sundar Shivraj, our production manager, and Ethan Matthews, our technical director, with special thanks to the staff and facilities of the Student Innovation Center Digital Media Suite. We are always looking to promote student organizations and campus events. So if you have an organization or event that you would like us to promote, please email us at stateofthings@iastate.edu.
The Iowa State University Student Government was created in 1958 to provide service to, advocacy for, and empowerment of students at Iowa State. To get involved or share your ideas for change, please email stugov@iastate.edu. That's stugov@iastate.edu. Thank you, and roll clones.